Okay, so let's talk about the ending of Oppenheimer and what it meant, that final line, that final shot, and everything, just how impactful it really is, because it's not only an ending to a movie, it's a warning to humanity itself. So let's get right into it. But before we talk about it, I want to go ahead and remind you that SAG and WGA are currently still under strike. They haven't gotten the fair compensation that they deserve, the deals and all of that. So make sure you are still supporting them in any way you can by sharing the message. Also, getting your information solely from the SAG and WGA Twitter or their webpage. Nobody else online or anything of that. People spread misinformation. They sort of don't give you all of the facts, and it can result in a lot of back and forth that isn't true. Just get it straight from there, and that's it. So make sure you're doing that, and let's get into the ending of Oppenheimer. So we got to talk about this movie. Basically tackled everything that was leading up to the creation of the atomic bomb, all the way up until they dropped it and the aftermath that happened after. And I really did enjoy how the movie looked at the whole thing as a very objective viewpoint. This is exactly what happened, and we also get this objective viewpoint of Oppenheimer as we see the back and forth between the colored scenes as well as the black and white scenes. That the colored scenes are more how Robert Oppenheimer was sort of perceiving things. The black and white was sort of more Straw's viewpoint of things, but at the same time also a very objective viewpoint of what Oppenheimer was like. And I think that Christopher Nolan has done this before, as well as we know from Memento, and it is a great way to tell the story, as well as the story sort of has these many different perspectives, as it should, because this was a very interesting, very crucial point, I think, in humanity's history, is the creation of these world-ending weapons. And I think that this story had to be told in so many different perspectives and timelines and all of that to really give you this full, like, encompassing view of what exactly this all meant at the time, because it is still something that we are still dealing with today as humans on this earth. We have these weapons of mass destruction all over the world that at any time's notice could eventually be used, just as we saw in the movie Oppenheimer. It was used during World War II on the Japanese, and a very, very atrocious, honestly, event in history. And I will say that I don't agree with a lot of the people online who are kind of mad that they didn't show what happened when the bombings and everything went off, because I think it would have been such poor taste to show that. We know what happened. We know how it happened. And it would have been disrespectful, I think, and Oppenheimer, of course, was doing this for the Americans and all of that. You know, it just would have been a bad look if he went that way. If the Japanese want to tell this story and all of that and show that, that'd be different. That's a completely different story. And this has already been showcased throughout other movies as well. So I don't think Nolan needed to include that, and I'm happy they didn't include that. But really showing that aftermath of how, like, different powers perceived that event, as we see some of them were sort of like, whatever about it, it happens, we don't care. Some of them felt a little bit too proud about it, we saw in the movie as well. And Oppenheimer and others felt very much so a lot of guilt. And I really did enjoy that Nolan perceived that guilt, as well as sort of showcasing it like, you feel guilty, but you still did it. You know, like, that was a clear point in the movie, especially in the interrogation scene, about this sort of way that Oppenheimer felt, right, when they're talking to him, that he felt guilty after everything, but during the creation and everything, and when they were getting ready to use it and all of that, Oppenheimer didn't show this. And I really like that conflicting human value to it, because I think Oppenheimer, at the end of the day, was very ignorant to everything. He just thought that he could create and be a scientist and all of this, but didn't really think further ahead as to what the ramifications and the consequences of this was going to be. And it was a little too late by the time he did. And I still think that Oppenheimer does deserve to get that heat for all of this, because it was Oppenheimer leading the project at all times. People kept raising the questions about how ethical this is, the morality of it all. Even in that one scene when they talk about Hitler already, like, basically surrendering with Germany and all of that, is it still okay to use this bomb because the Japanese were going to probably surrender? And I think that very much so is a thing about this movie, is that it doesn't shy away from anything. It calls out everything about it, whether it's just how imperialistic the USA became at a point during this war, and also the capitalist society that we live in, as well, talking about how much the bomb and the project and everything was, when you could think about how that money could have been used to better enrich other people's lives, and the talk between capitalism and communism back and forth as well. So I think that the film does a great job at really showcasing the whole story, not just trying to project one story of another, because at the end of the day, the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima are one of the worst things to happen in humanity and should not be celebrated at all. It is just a downright dastardly, horrible thing that happened. And I really do think that we see this presented in the movie in a very compelling way from different sides of the whole like story. But the ending where we see Oppenheimer sort of go back to Albert Einstein and have this conversation, which Strauss thought that this was a whole thing that they were talking about him. And I really enjoyed that they showed this scene 3 times. The first one is when you see it in the beginning of the movie and you think, oh, maybe just Oppenheimer and also Einstein don't see eye to eye with one another. Then the second time when we see it again is when Strauss thinks they were talking about him after Strauss gets denied the Senate seat because the scientists feel that Strauss had a vendetta against Oppenheimer. And so Strauss believes that during this conversation they were talking down about Strauss because Einstein gave that look. In the beginning of the movie, Strauss thought that look was given to Oppenheimer because they just couldn't stand one another. But in fact, at the end of the film, we realized that the conversation they actually had was about the chain of events that would result after the bomb was detonated. And during the time in the movie when they first discussed this, Einstein and Oppenheimer talks about how the chain of events would be that once the bomb detonates, it would inflame the atmosphere, and that would result in a chain of events of the world being destroyed. Now Oppenheimer seeing what has happened now, and Oppenheimer now seeing how the powers that control humanity are sort of now enticed to create more weapons, more bombs, and all of that, because as Oppenheimer says, you create more bombs, the other side is fearful, they'll create more bombs, and it goes back and forth, and it never stops. Oppenheimer tells Einstein they did create the chain of events. The chain of events is happening right now. It wasn't exactly what they thought it was going to be, where it was going to be instantly that the atmosphere would all like fire up and blow up and the world would be destroyed. It is in fact that the chain of events was, once we detonate this bomb, everybody's going to want a bomb, and everybody's going to want to have more bombs than one another, and eventually you create this huge arsenal and a lot of weapons of mass destruction throughout the world, and eventually the world could possibly be destroyed by mankind and this creation that Oppenheimer helped bring to life. And I think that that is definitely one of the most chilling endings for sure, as Oppenheimer tells this to Einstein. That is the reason Einstein looks so upset at the end of the day, because Einstein realizes this is the truth as well. We have created a world where now mankind can destroy it by themselves if that ever were to happen. And so I think that definitely is a great way to sort of wrap up this story with Oppenheimer coming to terms about what they have created and realizing just how wrong it was and maybe wasn't the best way to go about it. And it's a little too late now. The Pandora's box has been opened, if you will. It's known, it's out there, and they will not stop. As we know, power is absolutely a corruption, and that is what humanity has done, is corrupted themselves. So I think it's a definitely very bleak and very warning type of ending. And honestly, I really think it lands very well at the end of the day. So let me know what you think about the ending of Oppenheimer and everything about it. We will definitely talk more about Oppenheimer if y'all want, talk more about the subjective, objective viewpoints and all of that throughout the movie, if that's something you want to watch. And also check out my ending on Barbie if you haven't as well. We're segueing right into Barbie because it's honestly very dark route we go with Oppenheimer, right? But Barbie as well, we goes through some very dark routes as well. But overall, let me know what you think about Oppenheimer and its ending. I do want to make more of an analysis type ending to all of this, so stay tuned for that. Just like I do with past lives, where I go a little bit deeper into all of these scenes and everything as well, because I still think there's so much to discuss about this. So anyways, as always, we're on the road to 30,000 subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Once we reach 28,000, we will announce a giveaway winner. So all you have to do is be subscribed and comment below you want to enter the giveaway. And as always, I'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay positive.